major changes. Obviously, the next major is going to be done by Perfect World, which are a company that's based in mainland China, and they are Valve's distribution partner for Counter-Strike and other properties out there, because as you know, I'm sure you know from all of my Activision Blizzard coverage and just many other games reviews and whatnot that I've done, if you're a non-Chinese company and you want to sell your products in China, it is the law that you must partner with a Chinese company, because the way their government sees it is, if you want to make money from our populace, well, we better get something out of it. And so they form these partnerships, like it used to be NetEase before Activision Blizzard fucked that up with them, and on and on and on it goes. And so Perfect World and Valve have had this relationship for some time, and PGL have had a relationship with Perfect World as well. As I'm sure you're aware, PGL produce essentially the English language version of any Perfect World tournaments, and when they've done events in China. And so anyway, Perfect World were announced as being the second major for CS2 in 2024. And then since that announcement, which obviously I partially made that announcement when I was at the major in Denmark, the Copenhagen major, where I was working as a host, it's been pretty spartan on the details. And so anyway, we got this tweet, and you can see it's from the official Perfect World account, said, "We gladly announce that all RMRs for the Perfect World Counter-Strike 2 Shanghai Major 2024 will be held at LAN in Shanghai, China, from November 11th to December 15th, with the top 56 CS2 teams on Earth. We welcome every CSer to this grand esports event of 35 days. Can't wait to see you all." So obviously, this went out there, and I think people were kind of a little bit taken aback. You can see we're going to do what these European closed qualifiers going into the RMR, the America closed qualifiers going into the America's RMR, the Asia closed qualifiers going into the Asia RMR, and major opening into the major elimination into the major playoff. So that's all you need. You don't really need to know anything else. There's the dates there. That's not important to the story. What's important to the story is that this was just dropped, and people went, wait, closed qualifiers, how's that going to work? And so obviously how it's going to work is we don't have these big unwieldy 512 team, 1,024 team open online qualifiers, where in the past we've had just tons of problems with them, scheduling issues, teams getting disqualified, and then we've already played the next 5 games, and then you have to retroactively try and go back and rebuild the bracket. Oh, there's 30 cheaters have been caught out of 7,500 players. Cheating's out of control. Even the people running the qualifiers are saying cheating's out of control, even though we're catching the cheaters. So there's been all of these issues with it, and I've never liked those open qualifiers. I think that is a dog shit way to run what is effectively a world championship, and I'll come to that in a bit more detail in a moment. But this just got dropped, and people were like, wait, what's going on with these open qualifiers? Why have we got rid of them? And a lot of people started theory crafting, because that's what we do in the absence of information now in esports. We just make up theories whole cloth and then peddle them as the truth. And, even some of my colleagues were kind of guilty of this a little bit. And I was like, right. So the first thing, I do want to remind everyone that this shouldn't really come as a surprise, because back on the 3rd of August in 2023, Valve did tip the gaff a little bit. This was the post called a level playing field. And what this was about was getting rid of the partner leagues, which, by the way, partner leagues have been a scourge on CS, and essentially were a way for tournament organizers to consolidate power and influence with partnered teams that were willing to pay the money. If you had $3 to $5 million lying around, which at that time a lot of these teams did, you could buy into a league and be guaranteed a revenue return, and guaranteed somewhere to play, and guaranteed viewership, guaranteed these other opportunities. And that was how that went down. And by the way, when partnered leagues were introduced, keep in mind, people were starting and trying to do partnered leagues, and actually, the Face It partnered league was a partnered league before we were calling them partnered leagues. These were not upsetting people. People just tolerated them, like, oh, this is fine, not a big deal. Well, at least we'll have something regular to watch, and what else are the teams supposed to do, and all of this. And what they ended up doing, essentially, was freezing teams out. This is the important part you have to remember for later points. This is called, like, foreshadowing, I guess. Just focus on this part. Right, so they froze teams out, prevented them competing. A lot of them didn't even run qualifiers. If you remember, the Blast circuit was, if you wanted to get into Blast, you had to play these, like, other smaller Blasts, these showdowns and whatnot. And then you got not a lot of points for it, and you weren't even part of the permanent circuit. You might get to go to one Blast for real. He's like me, for real. But you don't actually get to compete at the big show on the reg because you didn't pay the 3 mil or whatever it was to get into the league. And this was the norm. This was the norm in Counter-Strike for fucking ages. And I don't remember, like, people were like, even me, to be fair, because you'll be able to pull up the tape, and, I'm never going to just gloss over my opinions. I fought against the monopolies and fought against these leagues, these exclusivity leagues, as they used to be called. You can go and read all of my work. I exposed all the plots and the plans and ESL's machinations, because all ESL has ever really been is a mafia of the mediocre, and they only fucking think about esports in monopolistic terms, which is why now that they've got this Saudi bag, they're running all this bullshit with the Esports World Cup. But anyway, I exposed that, wrote about that, said it was a bad thing. Then when we were staring into the abyss of almost total annihilation, I kind of softened a little bit on the idea of partnered leagues, because I was like, there's no other way to make money. The fans are dog shit. They don't pay money. There's no realistic pay-per-view. Every time a tournament operator tries to create a business model, developers hone in and go, it's our intellectual property, sir. We'll be having a slice of that delicious pie. And then, nobody could make any fucking money. So I softened on it, because I was like, it's probably better to have partnered leagues, hermetically sealed partnered leagues, where people regularly participate, and it's like the Premier League or whatever, right, except without a way to qualify into it, than to have no Counter-Strike at all. Then, of course, partnered leagues led to a few things. They led to the haves and the have-nots, organizationally, right, which meant if you were in one of these leagues, if you had the 3 to 5 million to be able to buy in, you got a return on that, and you got regular work, and and regular viewership, and you got access to a multitude of other benefits. But if you didn't have that and you couldn't get in, you couldn't acquire the world ranking to get invited to other events, so it actually harmed you because you weren't regularly competing. Meanwhile, if you were dog shit like Evil Geniuses, you just got artificially propped up and barely fell out of the top 25, because even though you were like the 50th or 60th best team in the world, if that, you never fell out of the top 25 because you were always regularly competing and losing, I might add, at these partnered leagues. And that's how that went down. And another problem that it created, it made the scene soft. And I want everybody to remember, because I think it's hilarious that people are now saying, wow, CS2, the scene just isn't strong right now. And I'm going, this scene is stronger, unironically, not saying it to be a contrarian, than the last year of CSGO. The last year of CSGO was dog shit. The last year of CSGO was nobody cared. There was a new game coming. There wasn't really anything to play for. Everybody was basically meeting their contractual obligations. And I want you to go back and I want you to look at the last 18 months of CSGO. Look at all of the tournaments that had stand-ins for notable teams, people taking holidays, people, saying, I'm burnt out, I can't do it anymore. The GOAT just walking away from the game. It's like the last 12 months of CSGO, especially, were terrible, and it was a coin toss as to who was going to win. Well, not a coin toss, because there'd be 20 teams entering, so it'd have to be like a 20-sided die roll as to who was going to win a fucking tournament. Nobody had an era, and then people are going to go, oh, but Richard, if you don't have an era, that means the scene is stronger. No, people would win one tournament one week, go to the next one, play dog shit, flame out 0-3. It was a fucking mess. Now, This is way better, in my opinion, and way stronger, and you've got emergent teams like Mouse, and that wasn't a thing, and blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is, people were no longer playing because they were the best and they were going to win. People had to turn up and just play because it was a contractual obligation, and players stopped trying. I know, by the way, as well, players were splitting their differences, their practice time, splitting the difference between two games, and others were just like so bored and burnt out and couldn't wait for CS2 to arrive because everyone thought CS2 was going to come out and there was going to be all this structure and incredible stuff attached to the new launch of the game. Little did they know. So, partnered leagues, overall, on the whole, a bad thing, historically, for Counter-Strike, a dark chapter, and I was very glad when Valve decided to put their foot down, break up this fucked up monopoly, and throw us back into this, the uncertain future of the open circuit, which, spoiler, the open circuit has worked in esports since the start of esports. It just works. Richard Howard. There's the quote. Right, this is where, by the way, it turns out there's like a Richard Howard who's like a fucking serial killer or something, like most prolific child murderer, and I've just said that, and I didn't think to research that before the stream, and now that's, you got to be careful about it, is all I'm saying. So anyway, Counter-Strike is at its best when teams compete on a level playing field, and when ability is the only limit to their success. Yeah. Over the past few years, we've seen professional Counter-Strike drift away from that ideal. The ecosystem has become gradually less open, with access to the highest levels of competition increasingly gated by business relationships. We think that Counter-Strike should be an open sport, so we're going to add new requirements to running large-scale competitive events. The finer details are still in progress, but here are the broad strokes. Tournament organizers will no longer have unique business relationships or other conflicts of interest with teams that participate in their events. And by the way, I think it's very good that we've expanded that now to include, I'm in a business relationship with this league and I'm competing in this league. I said this was effectively conflicts of interest, but I think it's just one of those things where it's like people got so used to the idea of the American franchise model that essentially what it was it kind of was a franchise model that we implemented a little bit in things like Pro League and whatnot. People just let it slide. I can't believe, did someone actually find a fucking serial killer? Did someone actually find a murderer? For fuck's sake. Really? Fuck me. That always happens. Why are they always murderers? Why can they never be like most prolific child charity? Well, I mean, then you're getting into Savile territory, aren't you? But for fuck's sake. Right, anyway, it's always killers. It's always killers. Invitations to all tournaments will use our ranking system, detailed here, or otherwise be determined by open qualifiers. This is the very important part, and any compensation for participating teams, prize pool or otherwise, will be made public and will be driven by objective criteria that can be inspected by the community. That's a reference, by the way, to the fact that revenue share numbers weren't necessarily publicly disclosed, but that was part of what you were getting for participating in the tournament in the first place. Since tournament organisers have existing long-term commitments, these requirements will take effect as of 2025. In other words, when those Louvre agreement and the Blast extensions run out. There'll be some rough edges to this transition, certainly, but we're committed to the long-term health of Counter-Strike as a sport and are looking forward to its bright and open future. So the first thing I wanted to say, going back to the Perfect World announcement, is everyone was acting shocked that we'd got rid of open qualifiers. And spoiler, the word on the street, and I think this got reported because I said it on one stream before, is that this could be the last RMR system. We don't know. So I can talk about it a bit more now because I think multiple people, clout goblins, have jumped on going, this is the last RMR. Players are going, this is the last RMR. I think Seized was out there, 100% definitely the last RMR. Right. It's not 100% definitely the last RMR, but it could be the last RMR, and I'll explain what's going on there. So eventually, the plan is to get rid of the RMR system, right, and just use Valve's ranking for invitation to tournaments. But obviously, the issue is Valve's ranking system, we don't know how good it is. Spoiler, I'll be telling you a little bit later about why it's dog shit so far. But they need a bit more time with it so they can tweak how it works, because it isn't the same as the HLTV World Ranking, which is what we've always gone off. That's what we've always used. And so it's going to take some time to get it right. Now, if they're confident after this RMR, we could just see the end of RMRs. But if it needs a little bit more time, let them cook for real, then obviously they're going to keep the RMR for maybe another event or so. So we don't know for sure. I think that's kind of where we're at right now. Richard, don't tell you no lies. So, right. But you can see there, people were complaining. And I'm going to show you some of these complaints and show you some of the ridiculous overreactions in just a moment. But people were complaining. And I contend that this shouldn't be new information, because people are saying, right, one of the lazy narratives that came out was, they're only doing this because they can't deal with the runaway cheating problem. That was one of the narratives. But I think point 2 on their blog says quite clearly where we were going to end up. Invitations to all tournaments. And by the way, I don't want to have a Second Amendment style argument about this and semantics, okay? But what I contend is invitations to all tournaments will use our ranking system, or otherwise be determined by open qualifiers. So in other words, all invitations to all tournaments in the Valve major ecosystem will use our ranking system. That's the closed qualifiers. Or otherwise, if they don't, or they can't, like, as we'll get to, maybe there has to be some open qualifiers in some regions because the ranking system isn't sufficient, or otherwise be determined by open qualifiers. So I don't think this should have come as the big surprise that it did for a lot of people, but a lot of people got bent out of shape. Like, if you go and look in the replies to that tweet, it's pretty wild, actually, the initial reactions. And I'm going to get into why some of these reactions just suck, but this is like Havu here. Got nothing against anyone, by the way, but I am kind of calling you out, so it's just one of those, right? I remember when majors were a good opportunity for smaller orgs to show what they can do against the big boys. Then again, who doesn't remember every single major up until now? We'll do Donna, since she's a regular on the stream now. Guys, I literally said I'm going to qualify for Shanghai Major for sure, but the system is rigged against me. But no, for real, this sucks for upcoming teams. I believe she thinks the changes are ugly. This is from Ecstatic, who you remember had that Cinderella kind of qualification to the major. You can see here, Ecstatic. Sad day for the CS2 scene. We made it to the major in Copenhagen, but it wouldn't have been possible without open qualifiers. The dream is now gone for thousands of players. Now the major is just another regular tournament. We all know that's not true. We know that's complete bullshit. Everyone's favorite clickbait expert, Ryan at Dust 2, said if there were no open qualifiers for the major last time around, Liquid and NRG would not have been able to compete. Wouldn't that be a fucking shame? Orgs that have fallen on hard times through their own mismanagement, having to rely on open qualifiers. In my opinion, it's ridiculous and short-sighted. Open qualifiers are important, especially so in North America. Won't somebody think of the fucking Americans? It's what I think every day when I wake up. Won't somebody think of Americans? They got the biggest marketing budgets, all these unlimited resources. Now they're taking the fucking Saudi bag. Won't somebody think of the fucking Americans and wow, they're having a tough time? That's what I think of esports. Let's just shed a tear for the most pampered, overprivileged, overpriced, wage-inflated, underperforming region. Won't we all just, God? But of course, that's how they have to feel. That's what you should be programmed to feel. Right, another one. Everyone's favorite agent, Jerome Coupé, he said, So now he's emphasized it in capitals, guys, the only way to play major closed qualifiers and RMR is to have a good Valve ranking. To have a good Valve ranking, you need to compete at good events or grind all random events and invite who they want. To be invited at good events, you have to have a good Valve ranking with a few open qualifier spots to home events. This is going to be interesting. Now, I'll come back to this one a little bit later if I forget, because I've got about to read another, dozen tweets. I want to come back to this one because Richard Lewis said, yeah, and what the fuck is wrong with that? Not in line with the community once again on this one, but I say, what is wrong with that, right? Oh, I have to compete regularly to get to a world championship. Whatever next. This is from Peter, the former coach of NIP. I remember back in 2014, you guys told me and my team in person you wanted CS to be a game where 5 friends would have the possibility to qualify for a major. How are they going to do that with closed qualifiers? Well, they're going to compete regularly, attain the requisite ranking, which wouldn't even necessarily have to be all that high, and they would get invited to the closed qualifiers. That's how that works, my old chum. But, more on that later. Because I spare no one, right? Kassad did say this, right? He fed into the bullshit, saying, doesn't Valve realise that cheaters are playing all the events that get them the points on their rankings? Now, what he's saying is, I do believe Kassad recently ran into what he believed were people using radar, which I've talked about in writing, on stream, constantly. You can stop that tomorrow, by the way. The betting websites just don't offer action on those teams, or those games, or those qualifiers. That's that. We fix that problem tomorrow, but no, because it's not really done for the purposes of getting them to an event or getting them through a qualifier. It's done for the purposes of rigging outcomes of games. So, not really, it's the tip of the iceberg on that one. This is Shocks, who, funnily enough, hasn't tweeted about Donald Trump in some time, saying, I know it sucks, but having open qualifiers without a proper anti-cheat is also a big problem. We, again, suffered way too much from it on the last ones. Get a proper anti-cheat, work on it, you have all the resources for it, Counter-Strike. Fight for the problem, don't remove it with kids' dreams, right? And so, Shocks firmly believes that what's happened here is Valve, rather than doing the thing they said they were going to do back in 2023, have decided, the cheating is out of control, so fuck them kids' dreams. And we're going to take that. Take the dreams away. Bring me the dream hammer. Smash all the dreams in front of the kids. This is what you get for fucking dreaming, you fucking stupid kids. That's what. But of course, obviously, that's not what's happened. It's ridiculous. But there's been a lot of ridiculous antics I've noticed around this particular topic. Seized, who is obviously doing himself proud by becoming part of that ex-Na'vi alumni that just post utter bollocks at all times for clout and attention. After update from Valve, where they write that there will be no open quals for Major, I guess all teams until August gonna accept all CCT and etc. tournaments just to farm money and points. This is a really stupid point because not all tournaments are going to get ranking points. That's going to be dictated by Valve, which is one of those teething problems they were talking about. You don't have to include ranking points for any tournaments they don't want to. For example, I'm pretty sure, because I know Valve are aware of this, if, for example, it's the Bet Boom Dasher tournament with Bet Boom in attendance, you're probably not getting ranking points for that one, homies, for obvious fucking reasons. And I like it. I like that there's a mechanism of control to stop all this ridiculous fuckery and backslide that we've got, because we're going back to 2016. But he then goes on to post something else. But if serious, it's big backstab from Valve to small teams. Back in the days, they told us that Major can even win 5 random people together. What about now, where points gaining via money? So disappointed by them again. And then just to show them how fucking pissed off he is. By the way, forgot to say it will be the last one RMR. From next year, they will invite teams directly to major via ranking. Clown emoji, which, by the way, we've established may not even necessarily be true. So that was Seized's incredible contribution there. Vorberg, who recently, and by the way, again, like this guy, had beers with this guy. What up, Daniel? Sorry, I'm about to fucking roast you. It's the name of the game. I feel like I'm the fucking scorpion on the back of the frog a lot of the times. But I'm doing it with love. I'm just doing it with love. This is not me, attacking you. But you knew I was a scorpion. Absolutely horrible decision to get rid of open qualifiers and only rely on a heavily flawed Valve ranking. Angry emoji. Oh, and no new team formed in the break will be able to qualify for the major unless, of course, you bought a franchise slot for easy points. Which, look, this is why they're getting rid of the franchise slots as well, mate. That's why what we're trying to do is get to a place where actually, if you just think about it, this could be a positive change. But whatever, mate. Also, come on. You are too old to be using emojis in the middle of your sentences. Stop that. MBK, another old friend, like Darkness, said, no open qualifier is insanely disappointing from Valve when it was the signature of majors for CS. Can't fix it, remove it is so weak. Also, closed qualifiers end of August for the RMR to be in November. So many things are wrong here. Now, by the way, I don't necessarily disagree with the scheduling points that some people have brought up. It does feel like it's a bit, we're sailing close to the wind. Anders, who was in the chat earlier, he thinks I didn't see him. He said, without taking a position yet, because I like to think it through a little bit and I'm slow, in an open qualification system, we're basically testing for who is the best this week, month. In a closed system, based on Valve ranking points, we're testing for who has been good enough throughout the season to get enough points. Feels like one system allows for a continuous season-long story being told, the other for Cinderella once-in-a-lifetime style runs. What else am I missing? Again, I'm not making a judgment, just thinking out loud, right? And by the way, once again, by doing this thing called thinking, Anders has nailed it. Because this, for me, is the crux of the matter and why people are genuinely pissed off. And why you will see it is a certain type of person that is pissed off. You may have noticed, right? What are we really dealing with here? I'll go to Big Head to emphasize this point. Who are the people who have been most pissed off about these changes? Dog shit teams that, maybe don't compete regularly or don't last very long or, don't have a particular high ceiling or teams that had notorious flukes, or it's washed former players that are now like throwing together dog shit mixes with other washed fucking pros. One last roll of the dice. One last fucking shot for glory. It's like, oh yeah, I understand it now. I get why you really like the idea of one fucking tournament, one chance to win. And if you just get the luck of the draw and a few good results, as particularly on MR12 and there's best of ones going on, you might be able to get to the RMR, get to the major, and get that sweet, sweet sticker money, which is really what this is all about. More on that in a moment. But, you can't help but notice like who these people are essentially. To that point, Kenny S said, unfair for many teams, but unfortunately I understand the decision. I currently don't know how Valve can improve the issues faced at the previous open qualifiers without taking such a drastic decision. And he is saying there that, again, this is all an allusion to the cheating issue, which was a non-issue, right? People are going to go on, Richard, how can you say that? Why are you always carrying water for cheats? Are you employed by a cheat code? Right. 30 cheats caught out of 7,500 people. Does anyone think, by the way, that any cheat is actually qualified through the open qualifier? No, nobody thinks that. The absurdity, by the way, of continually pointing to that and then pretending it's not something that happened in CSGO. By the way, every open qualifier in CSGO was a fucking shit show. And everybody was saying, these are terrible, get rid of them. Why do we have a system like this? Well, now we don't. Oh, but you're ruining it. Think of the romance. Think of the romance. So, let's get into a few things, actually. Let me just show you the bracket for... And this is just the one of the European Open qualifiers, right? And I want to just show you what they look like. So, by the way, this is only from the round of 64 onwards, right? And I just want you to look at this, and I want you to just look at the sea of fucking garbage names and bedroom orgs and all of this stuff, right? People who have thrown teams together solely for the purposes of these qualifiers, terrible orgs that don't pay their players salaries but are hoping to fucking cream 50% of the sticker money. Like, look, my view on it is this. The last thing esports needs is more and more inept people LARPing as sports brands and sports teams coming into the space because there's this law of the one shot, the one chance to get the sticker money. All the lurid headlines about sticker money, millions of dollars, life-changing money, you might say. And what ends up happening is we have these qualifiers where a bunch of people fucking just want to roll the dice, put a team together. And I'll also say, look at some of these teams that have allowed themselves to go to fucking seed, having to come through an open qualifier. I want you to think about how embarrassing it is for a brand like Fnatic to have to be battling through. And then, as you can see here, just about scraping through the third place match in an open qualifier for a major. I want you to think about that. Well, listen, I hate to break it to you. I don't want big organizations, because this is the other part of it that people aren't telling you, and that is that a lot of the times, these open qualifiers, there wasn't a Cinderella story in them. It was bigger orgs, established orgs, that weren't good enough to just be straight into the RMRs or whatever the fuck, having to go through these open qualifiers. And they were beating out teams that were meant to be the romantic ones. And they were there through their own incompetence and their ineptitude and their underperformance. And so this isn't a fucking Cinderella story. This isn't the dream factory or whatever the fuck. A lot of the time, this is another last chance saloon for teams that shouldn't be in this position in the first place. So fuck that. And as I said, they're just so big and so unwieldy. Like, you must remember, right, every single time one of these came rolling around, it was a fucking nightmare. It was a nightmare. Forfeits, disqualifications, people's fucking anti-cheat not working. Oh, get a working anti-cheat. Well, we've got one, but it doesn't work on your system. Or for some reason you didn't turn it on and now we got a disqualifier. This is so unfair. Why would anyone think I would cheat? Well, you can't have it both ways, you cunt. You know, people fucking just endlessly complaining, putting in fucking fucked up results, problems with admins, problems with lineups, registration issues. Yes, some cheating, because again, here's the other aspect to this that I can't understand, right? And that is, right, if you agree that the temptation to cheat is greater because we have this one-off gamble to potentially get sticker money, why not get rid of it? And then there's less temptation to cheat, because there isn't a one-shot tournament now. To get into the RMR, you've got to compete regularly. And this brings me to my other point. Let's put it this way, nothing against any of those organizations, nothing against any of these. Sure, they've all got these wicked fucking copy-paste, Fiverr fucking logos, and it's all a bit silly, but whatever. Right? But I've got nothing against any of these fucking orgs, right? Trying to be real and all of this stuff. I would add, if you ain't got the money and the expertise, probably just don't, because you generally, what I've come to realize after 20 years is you just create more problems than you actually solve. I got no problem with any of that. But the issues are, Like, they don't stick around. And I want people to be competing regularly in the ecosystem. I don't want a fucking one-off roll of the dice, make promises to a bunch of young adults about how you're a very real team, but you must qualify for the RMR, and then you don't, and then you just tell those people, fuck you. So this is the other part of it. These dreams that everyone's talking about. I want these people to regularly compete in the ecosystem. That should be the goal of all of these teams and players. And if you can't justify it, don't. But all of these fly-by-night organizations, ex-washed-up pros throwing mixes together with dog shit names and no funding, just like looking for team, looking for org, and then hoping to get sponsors. It's pathetic, guys. And they're not part of the ecosystem. They're here to get the sticker money. So how's that good for anyone's dreams? Well, it's not, is it? It's garbage. And so on that note, I want to just draw your attention to the kind of wretched clout goblinry, which I'm now making a term. The wretched clout goblinry that is something like this. iNation cease operations. The Serbian organization cited the recent update from Valve concerning the Major and RMR as the primary reasons for dropping their CS team. So, So in other words, we can't actually get the sticker money now. So fuck these players, including Emmy, who you probably know. And you can see this is what they put up on their statement, right? We regret to inform the public that the iNation by Regnum project is being discontinued. Despite our earnest efforts and dedication, we could not sustain the project. That's a you problem, by the way. The primary reason for this decision is the recent update from Valve concerning the Major and RMR, which significantly impacted our core objectives and reduced the feasibility of achieving our goals. This update drastically changed everything for our organization's financial and team structure. We were hoping to fluke some sticker money. Despite our efforts to accelerate our plans and goals, we extend a heartfelt thanks to everyone who supported us throughout this short journey. The players are free to pursue new opportunities, and we wish them all the best in their future endeavors. We hope this is a temporary farewell and not a permanent goodbye. We aim to be better prepared for the fast-paced changes and frequent updates that the esports industry faces next time. At this time, we thank you for understanding and continued support. And I'm going to just say to them what I said to all of the NA orgs. Remember when North American orgs were saying, oh, we have to leave Counter-Strike for now. There's just no way to make money, so we're terminating our team and walking away, and we're putting our resources into something else. Here's what I said. Fucking don't let the door eat you on the way out. Fuck off. Listen, if you want to be in esports and you want to be a professional esports team, you have to figure out a way to make it work financially. If you can't, that's a you thing. It's always been a you thing. Can the developer help? Yes. Right? Can we get better sponsors? Yes. Should the fans start paying? Yes. All of these things are true. But until those changes occur, it is a you thing. You have to figure it out. You can start by not simply saying, well, I really want this player. Yeah, but they're asking for $55,000, $60,000 a month salary. It's not feasible. It's not sustainable. Yes, but I want that player, and if I have that player, we will win. Well, even if you were to win the tournaments, you're only going to take 10% of the price. It doesn't even pay for that single player's salary, let alone the other four he would have to play with. Yes, but I want to win, and I want that player, the shirt sales aren't even going to cover the buyout. Yeah, but I want that player. You could stop doing that. You could do like what Mouse did. You know, why not? Mouse, all academy players now. Like, they develop their talent not just over 6 months, not just over 1 year, over a period of years to get to probably the weakest world's number one, a paper tiger that we've seen. But they have been the world's number one team on HLTV rankings, and they're a really, 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 really good team. So this, by the way, is just grade A bullshit. Just to cut through it, the reality is this. We're going to fuck off until we can get that sweet, sweet sticker money somehow. What a lot of these brands, orgs, whatever you want to call them, are going to do, by the way, they're going to wait until a team that's done well over a sustained period of time, off their own back, off their own blood, sweat, and tears, then they're going to swoop in and pick them up and say, oh, join us. They'll wait for someone else to do the work, and you're going to see lots of that under this new system. It's absolutely pathetic. To Interloper CS in the chat, was the pandemic the main reason why so many NA organisations left? No, I'm talking pre-pandemic, mate. I'm talking when COVID was not even a blip on the fucking horizon. And by the way, all of these orgs that profess to love Counter-Strike so much, weird how when the going gets tough, because it is one of the hardest games to have any form of sustained success in. It's weird how when the going gets tough, they all just fuck off over and over again. I'm not just talking about, dog shit orgs like Splice. I'm talking about your Cloud9s who've, walked away, 2-3 times now. It's like, just stay gone. You don't need to be here, guys. You don't need to be here. You're saying it's hard. Fine, it's hard. Don't do it then. Just go away. But stop doing this in and out thing. Because I can't think of any other sport, by the way, where outside of it being purely financial and clubs going into liquidation, for example, in football, they don't just go, oh, bloody hell, we're Southampton and we just got relegated. So we're not playing in the Championship this season, and maybe we'll come back another time. Ooh, spooky music. And they just fade away. And then 5 years later, they've got an incredible crop of fucking youngsters that they've developed. They can beat people. They're playing friendlies. They're ready to do it again. Wicked new sponsors, wicked new stadium. And then they just come back in and go, oh, yeah, we're back now. Can we have our championship slot back? No, definitely not, mate. That's not how that works. You fucked off, so you're done. It's really pathetic. There's nothing like it, and I hate that we do this in esports over and over and over again. And it all just boils down to everybody wants the fucking sticker money. And also, I want to just point out as well, with the system that we've had, has it actually been so great? Why are people lamenting the changes? I'll remind everybody again. Remember, we've gone through all of these open qualifier nightmares across every region. And then it's like, when you actually look at the RMRs are dog shit, actually. Because it's garbage in, garbage out. The RMRs are pretty fucking terrible when you actually look. They want you to believe that the RMR, that by having the open qualifiers, we get all these wicked, exciting teams come through in. And then they go into the RMR, and it's like, wow, well, they battled through the open qualifier, and so they're a real tough test for the teams waiting for them who got direct invites to the RMR. Well, that's not true either. Look at the fucking state of this. Just look at the this was a European RMR for the CS2 major in Copenhagen. Look at it. Look at the fucking state of it. Am I supposed to feel good about this? Am I supposed to feel good about fucking Guild Eagles? Dead now, of course. Fucking, oh, hey, sticker money's up for grabs. Let's try again. Am I supposed to be excited about Preezy and Pera and Nexus? I mean, the RMRs aren't fucking great. And so we don't need weaker one-off teams, zero chance of getting through, taking up these slots. We don't need that. That doesn't make for a good scene. That's not helping either, is it? And at the end of the day, when you come up against the big boys, there aren't many upsets. That's just the nature of the beast. That's why they're called upsets. So, to kind of wrap this up, I am not vibing with this fucking the lamentations of how sad it is, and no, we're not going to have any dreams and all that. Right. First of all, we have no idea how successful this is going to be. Second of all, if you don't want to regularly compete to earn your spot at a world championship, not one-off, roll the dice, shitters get some sticker money championship, then, I don't know, fuck off. Maybe esports isn't for you. If you don't want to play week in, week out, and people are going, oh, but they won't get invited to tournaments. Guys, I don't think you realise the fucking hellscape we're about to enter into, where tournaments are overlapping, right? There's going to be tournaments. There's going to be 3 tournaments on a weekend again, guys. We're going back to those days. We're going back to fucking peak StarCraft. There's going to be 3 tournaments on a weekend. Trust me, you're going to be able to earn your ranking points. You just have to turn up and compete. It's not going to be a problem. And then I will just say this, and maybe this is a broader topic to talk about, but I don't know. I do have some concerns about using Valve's ranking system because there was an event. Some people, this is the Trump bit, some people are calling it S tier, but I don't really know, but some people are calling it S tier. I'm not calling it S tier. But anyway, they did this event and Mongols won it, right? Mongols won this Yala tournament, and they're ranked 6th in the world on Valve's rankings now. In no fucking world, whatsoever are the Mongols the 6th best team in the world. And this is the issue. This is the real thing you should all be complaining about and keeping your eyes on. But what's funny is, if you were one of the people who were going, well, how will we ever get an invite? Go to a dog shit tournament and win it just before the major. Seems to be the tech. You could be in the top 20 teams in the world. You could skip a stage. So Valve have definitely got to tweak this for sure. Because if the Mongols can win one tournament against a not very strong field, and just because of the prize pool, it's kind of got to be labelled S tier on Wikipedia, and they can become 6th in the world, then the ranking system is shit. And so that's got to change. And I don't know, by the way, why we can't have something a bit more like the... I don't know what Valve's... the formula's there, it's on GitHub, I can't do maths, I'm fucking brain dead for that stuff. So someone can explain whether it's a good system or not, but I don't see how it can be, because there's no way on God's green earth Mongols are the 6th best team in the world right now. There's just no way. There's no way that's true.